Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Volquest.com and on the Volquest YouTube channel. If you're watching, hit that like button. Please subscribe. And as always, $1 for 1 year over at Volquest.com. Tennessee, 8-1, 4-1 in SEC play. Looking to jump back into the winning column against Missouri this weekend. 3 very winnable football games for the Volunteers to finish off the regular season. And it all starts with Missouri here this weekend. I'm Eric Kane, Austin Price, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs. Got plenty of mail to get into with this mailbag edition of the podcast. We'll go ahead and start with Checkered Neeland. Do you see the loser of Ohio State, Michigan being pushed for the playoffs rather than an 11-1 Tennessee, Brent Hubbs?
Yeah, listen, I know there's probably 6 million mailbag questions about the college football playoff in this, and I think it's an important topic and is worthy of discussion. But at the same time, too, I mean, it's week 2. I said this in the Tuesday edition of the podcast. Storylines are important in the college football playoff setting when you unveil those things and you look around at those things. So this thing's going to take every twist and turn known to man, Rob Lewis. I understand. I mean, I've gotten the direct messages and the emails. It feels like Heisman 97 all over again, that Tennessee's getting pushed out. It's a national conspiracy against them. All you can do at this point, if you're Tennessee, is go win your football game. Hope, and know that some teams around you are going to play each other and have a chance to get beat. And that starts with Ohio State and Michigan. What that looks like, what that game looks like, who knows where that puts them in the rankings. What we learned last night or Tuesday night when the rankings came out, the narrative of this week, Rob, the storyline, what was important this week was different than week 1, right? It was 5 wins over 500 teams this week was an important measuring stick, which wasn't discussed in week 1. That's just kind of how this thing's going to roll for the next month.
Yeah, I mean, again, Hubbard, I mean, you said it. I mean, you got a lot of football left to play. You got a month of football. And I've looked at it because I was looking at it for the 3-2-1 the other day. I just think Tennessee has by far the best resume of any team that's going to have one loss. I mean, whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, whoever wins that, they're the one loss team there. What's their best win going to be? Penn State, Illinois. That doesn't excite me. I mean, a one-loss Pac-12 team. I mean, you're talking about Oregon 49-3 against Georgia. And AP, I saw you on Twitter. I mean, Georgia pulled their that could have been 63-0. I mean, Georgia pulled their starters, in the fourth quarter. I mean, when it was 49-0. Tennessee's resume as a one-loss team is going to be better than anybody else out there, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah, clearly, ESPN got their talking points, and they pushed them hard yesterday. There's no other way to look at that. I mean, you can't do what they said and did yesterday and it not feel that way. And so, I get it. At the end of the day, Tennessee's just got to go out there and take care of business. You go back to 98, UCLA lost. Texas A&M upsets Kansas State. I mean, these things are going to happen. You go at, win these last 3, I can promise you, if TCU were to run the table, kudos, they earned it. I just don't see it. I don't think a lot of people see it. And then, one of the two is going to lose in that Ohio State-Michigan game. And so unless that's like, 40-38 and just, where one of them doesn't look like they deserve to fall out, it's kind of hard to, see one of those not taking a tumble. Ultimately, I think this comes down to 2 spots. And, out of about 4 teams, Oregon, USC, Michigan, Ohio State loser, Tennessee. And maybe LSU if they can somehow run the table. But again, I don't think anybody else sees them running the table either.
Yeah, Eric, for me, the one thing last night or Tuesday night that kind of jumped out at me that was a head scratcher was what Austin tweeted out about, and that's the portrayal that this Oregon loss to Georgia was the equivalent of Tennessee losing, or Tennessee losing to Georgia was the equivalent of Oregon losing to Georgia in that fashion. That of everything that's come out to this point, that's the one that's a head scratcher. Tennessee being 5th didn't surprise me, right? But the narrative that those 2 games were the same game is the one that just doesn't. I can't figure that. I can't fathom or grasp that one if you watch those two games. And I'm not looking at that through orange-colored glasses. I'm just one was a 49-0 beatdown, uncompetitive, and the other was in Sanford Stadium, and Tennessee clearly did not play well, but at times did not look completely overmatched the way that it's been portrayed by some.
Yeah, I mean, both teams got whipped at points in times in the football game, but again, the final score still counts, right? I mean, Tennessee lost by 2 scores, and Oregon lost by many more than that. So,
Well, just like Tennessee was up by 17 against Florida, took their foot off the gas trying to get it to triple zeros and almost ended up losing the football game. When in reality, if they just keep playing, they're going to keep scoring and they win that game by double digits. So, I mean, like, there's a reason that the game is 60 minutes. There's a reason you have to count every point. Was the game as close Saturday as the score indicated? No. I mean, Georgia was the better football team. But at the same time, you can't act like that they didn't pull their start. As Rob said, the game could have been – they could have scored in the 60s easily against Oregon. Oregon had nothing. And I get it. It was game one, right? New quarterback, new coach, all that stuff. But they've got their talking points. They've got their narrative to push. Now it's up to Oregon and USC to try to win out and see if they can push that narrative across the finish line. Because, I think there's a real shot that Oregon could lose. And I think USC still is either going to lose the Pac-12 championship game to Oregon or potentially UCLA to round out the regular season.
Yeah. I think Tennessee should have been 4th, but I expected Tennessee to be 5th. I'm not sure how a one-loss TCU can be behind a one-loss Alabama team last week, but jumps in front of a one-loss Tennessee team this week. That doesn't add up. But there's too many scenarios.
That's what adds up. It's made for TV. They have to create their own drama. And he said it last week before it ever came out, and he's right. They have to create their own drama because ultimately it'd be real easy to kind of roll through with the same 4 teams every week and no one bats an eye at times. Now, I'm not saying every week, but many times through that playoff era have there been the possibility for it just to never change. But they create, oh man, did you, 6 wins against teams of 500 or better. Okay, sure.
There's too many scenarios that favor Tennessee the more you play out if you win out. So that's what's important there. Tennessee's still in a good spot. Let's go to Marty. One of my biggest takeaways from last Saturday is that our defense is continually improving. Do you believe that Tennessee's defense can grow to a point this season where they're possibly as worrisome as the offense? Obviously didn't play well against Kentucky and Georgia or the Pitt game.
I don't think they can get there, but I think they're a better team. They're definitely a better defense, Rob.
Yeah, they're better than they were when against Pittsburgh, against Florida in the first half. But no, they're just it's not going to matter. I mean, the offense it's the best offense in the country before you went into last week. I mean, average SEC defense at best. I'm not going to waste a lot of breath on that.
Now,
Hendersonville Vol, since Georgia figured out how to slow Tennessee's offense down, are you worried that Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt will be able to do the same or something similar in that fashion, Austin?
Blueprint, Hubbard.
I'm not worried about it at all. At all. I'm not worried about it at all. I think Tennessee's really motivated this week. In talking to Jalen Hyatt last night when we taped Vol Club Confidential, I think that every one of these players is motivated. I think the game plan they've got is to come in and, if they can hang 60 on them, they're going to try to hang 60 on them. I think that's the mentality these last 3 weeks. I don't think there's going to be any, there's no more, Mr. Nice Hypel. I think it's going to be, if you can put it on them, you put it on them. And, he knows style points matter. And as you guys have talked about, that's Tennessee's style anyways. But, I don't think you'll see them trying to, just get it to the triple zeros like they did against Florida. I think this is keep scoring till triple zeros.
Yeah, I think the most motivated group out of the offense, ironically, maybe the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't know that a lot of people talked about that. There's so much discussion about blueprint and figuring out how to stop the passing game, and Hendon Hooker held the ball this or this, that. That offensive line, particularly in the center guard area, didn't play well. They got pushed around up front with interior pressure. That is a prideful group that has some lofty goals, and I know they were extremely disappointed with the way things went in Athens, Georgia. I will, of all the groups on offense, that's the group I think will be the most different from last week to this week. Even though this is a Missouri team that's aggressive up front and does some different things, I think this offensive line bounces back in a pretty big time way this week.
And again, it's nice that you get that home game. You know, I've said that all year. It's not about to me. It's how Tennessee's schedule is structured. It's set up, and I mean it is what it is. Like they didn't set the conference schedule. It just kind of plays out this way. It's set up where you have this tough loss at Georgia, and you didn't have to go on the road again. You get to come home, which is good for that offensive line that you're talking about, Hubbard, because they don't have to go right back into the fire of a road game. They get to come home and kind of, let their aggression out on Missouri.
Let's get some hoops questions in here. I am 41-0 EC. Rob, did UT Rick Barnes pull the plug too early on Drew Pember? Asking him to look around for greener pastures. It seems like he developed into a really nice player, at least the player UT thought he could be, with another program that's crushing it.
Tennessee didn't pull the plug on Drew Pember. Drew Pember pulled the plug on Tennessee. In very simple.
Did Tyreek Key fly under the radar out of high school, and how did UT miss on him out of high school? Or was he just not taken because UT was after a bigger fish?
Tennessee did not miss on him out of high school. Tennessee recruited him his senior year. They didn't have a spot for him early. I can't remember who the kid was, but there was somebody on the team that everybody in the staff knew was not going to be on the team next year. They told Tyreek, if you'll wait until April, we're going to have a spot for you. We want you. We want to sign you. And Tyreek, I'm not saying he didn't trust Tennessee, but he had some offers on hand at the time, Indiana State being one of them. He wanted to sign early and get that out of the way, and so he did not wait. But Tennessee liked him out of high school and would have taken him had he waited until the late period.
Has he? Correct me if I'm wrong. This is just I don't know. I'm ignorant. Did he play 4 years at Indiana State, and this is the fifth year?
Played 4 years and did not play last year. He had shoulder surgery in the preseason, so shut it down. So he would have been a fifth-year COVID senior last year, and so technically this is his sixth year.
Okay, that's why I was asking. Is he a 1-for-1? Because, I mean, all these kids are confusing. The football side of things, I thought Byron Young is done. Technically, he's got another year, but I don't think he'll take it. And
technically,
football like that.
I mean, Josiah, Santiago, Olivia, all those guys technically could come back. I don't know that any of them will. I don't expect them to, but, theoretically.
Kind of on that note, shifting back to football, Vols Rule 8. AP just trying to piece it together what the team could look like next year. Who could return that are seniors right now? Excuse me. Listing off Jacob Warren, Byron Young, Aaron Beasley, J.J. Crawford, Ramel Keaton, Roman Harrison. Technically, all those are seniors. I'm not sure about J.J. Crawford. Sorry, he lists him here. I don't know if he's a senior, but those are all seniors. How many of those guys do you see potentially returning next year?
Well,
and some others.
Warren could. I think a year ago he was. I think he's going to go through senior day on Saturday, and then could still potentially return. But I would say leaning to not right now. But again, a lot can change between the now and the next month and a half in a kid's mind. J.J. Crawford will be back. Who else were you naming?
I would imagine Aaron Beasley would be back.
I would imagine Aaron Beasley will be back. Yes.
Byron Young's probably gone.
Byron Young, probably gone. I'll tell you a name that I think potentially could come back. And I don't even think I realized this until Tuesday. But Jawan Mitchell can actually come back again.
What?
How? Because he's got a COVID year.
I thought this was the 6th year.
Nope.
Gosh, it is getting confusing on the football side of things. I was talking with Sean Barrows the other day.
For sure too. So I think there's a possibility he could come back. Keep going with your list.
Ramel Keaton is a true senior. Roman Harrison's a true senior. Back. Like both those guys coming back. And then there are others that he didn't mention. Like Darnell Wright's a senior. He's gone. Jeremy Banks is a senior. He's likely gone. Cedric Tillman is a senior. He's likely gone. Princeton Fant's out of eligibility.
Out of eligibility, yep.
On the offensive line, I think that's everybody. Yeah, so, and again, like, how many guys do we see? Jalen McCullough could come back. Technically, Trayvon Flowers could come back, but, we'll see if he does. it gets really confusing. And just because you see a guy out there going through senior
No,
day,
Trayvon Flowers cannot come back.
are you sure?
Yes, he's played 4 years. This was his 5th.
Did he not have the medical red shirt one year
Nope.
because he had 2 significant injuries?
I know, but he played more than the 4.
Okay. He's
Yeah.
Me and Sean Barrows were crunching the numbers yesterday trying to figure out Trayvon Flowers because of all that. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see
I thought
exactly.
both safeties were in the same boat, but technically Flowers and McCullough are not the same because Flowers never redshirted.
I got you. All right, let's get some recruiting in here. It's been a while since we've had a recruit to the magnitude of Nico. How much do you think he carries over into the 2024 class, Austin? Those guys know that they're going to be playing with him as well.
I think it definitely helps with the offensive skill. If you're a receiver, you're looking saying, okay, who's got what at quarterback? If I'm a receiver, I'm looking, okay, Drake May's in North Carolina for the next couple of years. Okay, Nico's at Tennessee for the next couple of years. Dante Moore is at Oregon for the next couple of years. I'm looking at it if I'm a younger receiver, even though I'm a class or 2 younger, thinking, okay, when I go there, I'm going to have somebody that's got arm talent that can get me the ball. So I do think that it does help with the future classes, especially at the skill spots.
Brent, can you go into a little bit more detail and depth on how and what it means that Danny White and the UT administration publicly supporting Spire and the Volunteer Club? Are they more in line with other programs in the SEC, or is this another leg up in the new landscape?
Well, no, I think that everybody's in the same landscape with the NCAA making the ruling that they made a couple of weeks ago, which allows the collective and the university to work together in conversation and in details in regards to current student athletes. I think current student athletes is the key word there. Obviously, that doesn't deal with anything in recruiting or anything out there, but it's significant because it allows Spire to be attached to the university, and it allows coaches to endorse a collective for the first time, and we've not seen that before. There is also movement afoot that you can, as a donor, you can earmark some of your money to a collective and still get donor points for it. For your where your ranking is in terms of your pecking order of seats and parking passes and all those things as well. So it's significant, and it's a significant ruling by the NCAA. Because of that ruling, Danny White in Tennessee has moved forward with a plan. I think the notion that Danny White was always anti-NIL was unfair. I think he was extremely cautious. I think the administration was cautious because of the NCAA investigation, and because the NCAA came out and kind of said don't deal with collectives, right? And so some people took that as a gray area, Austin, where they endorsed some places. We saw that at Ohio State. You saw that at Auburn with their previous administration. Tennessee was not going to be in that gray area, given the fact that the NCAA was on their campus and was in the middle of an investigation. Now that there's clarity in the rules, Tennessee has moved forward and wants to be aggressive and successful in NIL.
Yeah, 100%. You look at Matt Hibbs down at Georgia. He was literally on the field in the middle of all the massive humanity there with the players after the game Saturday. So, everybody handles things differently. I do think it's a very much a positive that you've seen, them come out and endorse it. I think you'll see Heupel come out and be more vocal about Spire in the coming days. The one thing that really sticks out to me is that, you've kind of started to see some real alignment there, because I think, there are some of the older donors that, follow the lead of the athletic department. And so when, Tennessee was being more cautious, some of those older donors were like, well, we're going to be cautious too. Now that you've seen them go and get in the pool, I think you'll see other people get in the pool, which I think helps, because ultimately I think Danny White and Josh Heupel can be the 2 greatest spokesmen for their collectives, whether that's Booster Club, Spire, whoever, because fans listen to the AD, fans listen to the head coach. They have the biggest voice. People at Spire can say till they're blue in the face, hey, we need to raise money. That doesn't mean people will go give. But when Danny White says it, it carries a lot of weight. When Josh Heupel says it, it carries a lot of weight. So I think this is a big positive for Tennessee. and I think will help going forward.
Let's get back to football. A Vols fan for you, Rob. We don't often see it too much, but is Hooker a good rollout passer? It seems to me after the staff recognized that Georgia was going to be bringing pressure consistently, they would have looked to get him ways out of the pocket, try to create a few extra seconds to allow him to throw to open receivers. If there is a rematch, do you see something like this working itself into the game plan, the rollout passing?
I mean, I think he throws fine on the move. I mean, don't you guys? I just don't. I mean, the rollout when you're always out of the shotgun and kind of spread out. I think that kind of takes the the classic stereotypical naked bootleg type stuff out of the equation. I mean, I don't think that's part of the playbook, just mainly because of the formations they're always in. But I think Hooker throws fine on the move.
Yeah, I don't think he has a problem on the move. I think one of the things Georgia did a really good job of, and Kirby Smart talked about it after the game, is they did not want their pass rush getting past Hendon Hooker on the outside. They really wanted to try to keep him in the pocket and squeeze the pocket because they felt like they could get interior pressure. They did not want to get interior pressure and have a defensive end collapse and give up a soft corner where he could roll out. So if you go back and watch that game, Eric, if he was going to roll out, he was going to have to belly out 10 or 12 yards to get outside the defensive end, which from a timing standpoint was going to be a real issue there. So if those two teams played again, both teams would do some things different. Obviously, Tennessee would go about attacking some things differently, I'm sure. I think he throws it fine on the run, but with the spread stuff and what they do, I don't think that being a, quote, 15, 20 time a game rollout passer is going to be a part of this offense. It just hasn't been to this point.
Well, and I think if they play again, it's for the national championship because I don't think that they'll rematch them in the semifinals. Until they actually do that, I just don't see it because I think you want a freshness to the semifinals.
No.
And I just don't know if they'll do the rematch in the semis. So I think either way, you're playing in the college football playoff if you get a rematch, and that's house money for the Vols.
We've seen it twice already, right? Both teams, both games had Georgia in it, so maybe it'll happen a third time. West Tennessee Mike, thoughts on getting Arian Carter's last official visit, Austin?
I think it's great. Tennessee kind of drew their line in the sand. They were willing to, to lose out on Arian Carter. Basically, in their mind, I think they felt like, hey, if he comes for the Kentucky game and we get a 24-hour visit or a really quick visit, our chances are slim and none anyway. So there's no point to bring him in. So they kind of drew their line in the sand, and I think it worked because the kid ultimately really wants to come on an official visit here. And so thus it was, hey, I really want to be done when the calendar turns to December, but I want to see Tennessee more. And so what you're seeing here is, Tennessee winning out, kind of playing hardball and recruiting a little bit, and it worked to their favor here. They could have easily lost out on Arian Carter, and they still may, right? I mean, he could still go to Alabama just because he's visiting here last. But I do think that it gives him a real shot now, whereas before I think the chances, much like Tennessee felt like it was, were really slim had he visited for the Kentucky game and then went on all the other visits in November and visited Alabama at the end of November.
Austin, would they have played that the same way had he been on campus 4 or 5 times in the summer or been here before? Or do you think that was a different play because he had not experienced Tennessee? I mean, because they don't draw the line in the sand on everybody. Was that different because late bloomer, late offer had not seen Tennessee on multiple unofficial visits?
I think so. I mean, they've just not spent a whole lot of time with him. He's come up to a game or two, and that's great. But you just on those game weekends, you just lose out on so much time. I mean, I was stunned when David Hobbs. I mean, they kept him a full 48, which is why he didn't leave campus Saturday, or when he started Saturday, he didn't leave till Monday morning at 8 a.m. Tennessee elects not to do that. A lot of their game plan is Sunday, so they spend a lot of time Sunday in meeting rooms, game planning for the next opponent. That's a huge game plan day for Tennessee. That's why they try to avoid in-season officials if they can handle it. And I know that they just felt like, hey, this is going to be a quick visit, quick turnaround. Chances are slim. We've got to be able to get him here in December. Take our shot then. We may not get him then, but we at least feel better about our opportunity.
All right, let's go to Canada Vol. Tanner keeps ignoring my questions. I'll keep rephrasing it. Here we go. We got you this week. In the past, schools with unique, high-powered offensive had difficulty in fielding equally good defenses. The Big 12 is full of examples. Can Tennessee have that kind of offense, which everyone knows stresses the defense, and still regularly recruits elite level defensive players like Georgia and Alabama?
I mean, who's had a better offense than Alabama in the last 3 or 4 years? Since Saban brought Kiffin in and embraced the spread, hurry up, and that. Yeah, I mean, it's not one or the other. Yeah, I mean, how many draft picks has Alabama had on defense since they've had Tua or Bryce Young or Mac Jones, first round quarterbacks throwing it all over the place? It's no impetitive.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. Defensive football and college football is vastly different now than it was, 8 years ago, right? I mean, it's the game's different, and so you're not playing that LSU Alabama. What was that? 10
6-3, 9-6,
6-3. What you're not playing those games. That's not what you're playing in a championship game anymore, because the game has changed. That's why everybody's looking for an offensive head football coach, right? You're trying to sell tickets, but you're also you have to keep pace, right? That's where it's at, and so you have to be able to score points. Yes, you got to play defense, but you're not the lone exception out there. This is not the Houston run and shoot with Andre Ware from 20 years ago, where you're throwing it 65 times and you're putting your defense in a bad spot. This is what everybody in college football is doing. I mean, to some degree, everybody is playing football this way. So that's why I don't think I agree with Rob 100%.
So well, and also, should we inform Hubs that he played 30 years ago, Rob?
I was going to say, I know we talked about this last week. I mean, hey, newsflash: Georgia is second in the nation behind Tennessee in total offense going into last week. And nobody was really talking about it, but I mean, they were averaging 530 yards a game,
and without real dangerous playmakers, right?
Yeah, I mean, to Hubbard's point, that's the way college football is played. I mean, it's wide open, and yeah, I mean, just because you play that way on offense doesn't mean anything about what you can recruit on defense.
All right, let's get some rapid fire here from Athron. Hooker Heisman campaign, did it end last week, Austin?
No, I mean, I think he can still be a finalist, but I think that he's got to have some guys.
Michigan's got to beat Ohio State.
Well, but see, once that happens, the Michigan running back is going to vault right up the conversation. So, to me, that's pick your poison. I think Bryce Young, as good as he is, being on a 2-loss team hurts him a little bit. But, I mean, honestly, if you said best player in college football, I'm taking Bryce Young. I mean, he's a freak, man. I mean, just ridiculous. Now, I don't know how his size holds up at the next level, but, I mean, what he does with keeping his eyes down the field is special.
I think he's got to ball out these last 3 weeks, and I think he'll be a finalist. But it didn't end last week.
Which goes hand in hand with what Tennessee needs, right? They need style points. They need to win big. Hendon Hooker needs big stats to get into that conversation. So, to me, if you get one, you get both.
Will Tennessee add another DB in this class via high school, JUCO, or transfer? At least is there still a big need there with the emergence of Slaughter and Turnage at cornerback?
Yeah, because I mean, you never know what you're going to get as far as like people going in the portal. So yes, I think that it's possible. I think you don't see them go with a DB per se. I think it's more of a safety. Tyler Scott makes the most sense, but again, Sylvester Smith, he's going to get a call from the new Auburn head coach. Does he give him a look? I mean, I've been saying it for weeks. Like, to me, he is a perfect candidate to look around. Not that Tennessee wants him to look around. They want to keep him. They think he's had a phenomenal year. But, again, sometimes close to home, family, all that stuff wins out. So we'll see. But, yeah, I think Tennessee probably adds another DB in some form or fashion somewhere along the way.
Over under 1.5 commits by Monday.
1.5.
Yeah.
I'll go under.
I never seen one, Paul.
And
somebody will get that reference, Rob Lewis. Not many, but someone along the way will get my Horatio reference, I hope. Kane has no idea what I'm talking about.
No idea. So lost, as always. Who's the main quarterback target in the 2024 class?
Jaden Davis. I'm not sure they're real.
It's going to be hard. Going to be hard in 2024.
It's going to be hard, 100%.
Merklinger. Is that his name?
Who?
Gosh,
The
I
kid from
forgot his
South
name.
Georgia.
Yeah,
Savannah?
Merklinger.
Yeah, I mean he's one of them, and so's was it Cutler Bowley?
Yeah.
25, I think, would be George McIntyre.
Okay. Here we go. We got a
Madden.
question from Vol Manic. Why was Tennessee so much more successful moving the ball against Georgia last year against a better front seven, Rob?
I don't have the answer to that question. I mean, I don't remember them moving it that great. I guess they did in between the 20s, if I remember that game correctly. But I can't answer that question. I mean, this is a better offense by any metric you want to throw out there.
I think Georgia was better in the secondary. I think they played better in the secondary. This game, they tackled much better. I think they, did a nice job of mixing some stuff up in the back end. And Tennessee hit a couple of plays. I mean, what does the stats look like if you hit Jalen Hyatt? What does the stat look like if you hit Brew McCoy? There's another 100 yards of offense, right? Two more trips in, two more potential red zone trips or 2 scores there. So, they had a couple of plays last year that they didn't hit this year that changed the look of that a good bit.
And home versus away.
Yeah, changed the dynamic of their play calling with all the penalties and all those things. I think Georgia probably did less this year. They probably simplified some defensive stuff. I think they executed what they had this year better than last year. Last year they caught Georgia a couple times in some bad schematics and got the chaos that you're looking for and created confusion. They did not create that confusion on Saturday. Credit to Georgia for that. Tennessee didn't help create any confusion because of all the stoppages and plays with penalties and changing the sticks and down and distances and all that stuff, Eric.
We'll do a couple more. Let's go back to Hype Train here. I'm sure you've addressed it, but haven't been on here much. What's the situation with Hobbs after this past weekend, leaving that official visit? Austin, where's Tennessee with Hobbs?
Georgia replaces Alabama as Tennessee's main competition. I won't say Alabama's out, but I feel like they're kind of out. I think this is Tennessee and Georgia. I'm interested to see where he's at come the weekend. He had a great time in Athens. I don't believe he privately committed to Georgia or anything like that, which is a real positive if you're a Tennessee fan. At the same time, I think he kind of got swept up in the momentum of the weekend. So I think his feelings were really, really strong coming out of the visit. Are they still strong come this weekend? Or has he kind of died back down, had a chance to coach Coach Heupel, Coach Garner, and all of a sudden Tennessee's got some of the momentum back? Not to say that Georgia was the leader coming out of the weekend. I'm just saying they went from kind of third to nipping right there at Tennessee's heels, if not tied with Tennessee, in my opinion. That's kind of where I am at with it, as we say here on Thursday.
All right, let's end here with Sam Smith. How much does it hurt Tennessee that Tennessee's not going to play a ranked team the last 3 weeks of the season when TCU, Oregon, and USC play ranked teams to close out the year? Is it as much as, I know it's a lot of what have you done for me lately, but Tennessee's played ranked teams this year. Tennessee's performed well. Should that hold up, Brent?
Well, it depends on what the narrative is, right, Rob? I mean, is it the narrative of they were ranked when you played them, now they're not ranked? I mean, not having a game against a high quality opponent down the stretch here after the Georgia loss, it isn't the greatest scenario for Tennessee. That's why they need help, Rob. I mean, that's why they need some teams to lose around them.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of Michigan and Ohio State, I mean, there's not really a marquee. I mean, I know USC and UCLA play, but that's going to be an elimination game. I mean, the whoever loses that one is out, and I don't think it's a huge deal. I mean, would it be better if you maybe played Kentucky or at least LSU or somebody this late? Yeah, but I just maybe I'm naive. I think the body of work is by far the most impressive of any of these teams we're talking about, and that LSU win just keeps looking better and better.
It only matters what happens after the games are played, because if those teams go out and win and run the table, then they're going to benefit from playing those ranked opponents the last 3 weeks, and Tennessee won't. But Tennessee also, if they go out and win, they have a less chance of getting getting bit by an upset. Those other teams could easily lose and all of a sudden wish they had those easy games that Tennessee had the last 3 weeks. So I think it just boils down to how the games play out, because I think some of those teams are going to wish, man, I wish I'd had a little easier run there at the end of the season like Tennessee did.
Great questions here today. We had plenty of them. We got to most of them. So as always, thanks so much for getting your questions in every single week for the Mailbag Podcast. We tape it every single Thursday right here at Volquest.com and on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. We're already over 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. We need to get to 16, guys. Then we need to get to 17. Thank you so much for helping us out there. Please pound that like button as well. The goal is always 500 likes on every single video right here on YouTube. And as always, still right now, $1 for 1 year over at Volquest.com. Come and hang out with us as Tennessee looks to finish the season strong. 8-1 right now, could finish 11-1. Missouri, the next challenger here on Saturday. For Austin Price, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for getting in those questions on the Mailbag Podcast right here at Volquest.com.